We are living through a huge but quiet transition that's completely reshaping one of our oldest institutions, the law. It's moving away from physical courtrooms and paper documents and into a new, virtual kind of existence. In this explainer, we're going to explore this fascinating new world, and it's all based on the groundbreaking work of Professor Kiskinov. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get a handle on what virtual reality even means from a philosophical standpoint. Then we'll see how the law actually works in this new space. We'll look at its really unique qualities. And finally, we'll think about what all this means for the future of our entire legal system. All right, so before we can even begin to talk about virtual law, we have to get a really firm grasp on what virtual reality is. And not just the technology, but what it means as a new kind of existence. See, Professor Kiskinov argues that this isn't just some minor change that only affects one thing, like online shopping. No, he calls it an epochal transition. It's universal, and it's affecting every single branch of law. Honestly, in all of legal history, we've never seen anything quite like it. The law is literally moving into a new state of being. So, what exactly is this new dimension? Well, according to the source, virtual reality is an environment that is, at its core, non-physical. It's ideal, which means it's a world made of concepts and information. And it's artificial, meaning it's completely built by us, using our technology. It helps to think of it less as a place and more like a structured space for ideas to exist. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. A lot of people think of VR as just a copy, a substitute for the real world. But Kishkinov's point is much deeper. For abstract things, like a legal rule or the idea of a corporation, virtual reality isn't a copy of anything. It's actually the very first time these ideas can have a real, shared, accessible existence outside of just being in our own heads or written down on paper. To really get why that's so revolutionary, you have to know that philosophers have historically talked about three different realms of being. You've got the objective, physical world that we can all see and touch. Then there's the subjective world inside our own minds, which only we can access. And finally, there's this hypothetical idea of a transcendent realm, a perfect shared world of ideas that's always been out of reach. And that's the light bulb moment right there. For the first time in history, our technology is letting us build a man-made version of that transcendent realm. It's a shared ideal space where concepts can live and interact. Now, it's not perfect or divine, but it is generally accessible to everyone. So, what happens when something as old and important as the law moves into this new shared space? Okay, now that we have that foundation, let's bring the law into the picture. How exactly does our legal system exist and actually operate in this new man-made ideal environment? So here's the formal definition. Virtual legal reality isn't just a set of laws about the internet. No, it's the whole collection of phenomena, states, and special mechanisms that allow the law to actually function inside the virtual world itself. We're talking about things like digital signatures, electronic courts, and online public registers. And this new reality is really made of two core components. On one side, you've got the prescribing part. Those are the practical nuts and bolts rules that make everything work. But on the other side, and this is just as important, is the conceptual part. These are the underlying academic models and theories that give the whole thing structure and meaning. This simple example makes it all crystal clear. Think about buying a toaster online. The toaster itself is still a physical thing, right? But the entire legal procedure for making that sales contract, the offer, the acceptance, the confirmation, it all happens in a non-physical, ideal, electronic world. The legal part has become totally separate from the material world. So we know that law can exist in this virtual space. But what makes it so different? Why does it matter? This next section gets into the unique and sometimes pretty counterintuitive properties that law takes on when it's in this new environment. There are four qualities here that are just total game changers. First, abstract legal ideas become directly accessible to everyone. Second, legal actions can be automated. Third, this new legal world has to be built systematically, by design, not just through slow, messy evolution over centuries. And fourth, it allows for experimentation. We can test and even reset virtual legal systems in a way that's totally impossible in the real world. Hold on. Let's just pause on that idea of automatism for a second. This is a profound shift. I mean, for all of history, a legal statement, like a contract or a judgment, required a human mind. What does it actually mean for us as a society when that isn't necessarily true anymore? But, and this is a really important but, it doesn't mean it's the Wild West.
The source is very clear that European law already put some crucial limits on this. Purely automated decisions are not allowed when they involve judging a person's behavior or their character. So the key point is, automation is for processes, not for human judgment.
Okay, this brings us to our final section. Let's zoom out and really consider what this all means for the legal system as a whole. What's the bigger picture here? And this is perhaps the single most important takeaway. Professor Kiskinov argues that virtual legal reality isn't some little niche area like cyber law. No, it is the new, expanded way that the entire legal system exists. It's a fundamental change in the very being of law itself. This chart does a really good job of summarizing the practical upgrades. Compared to the traditional system, this virtual legal world is way more manageable and controllable by design. It gives us direct access to legal concepts, not indirect, and it brings in a high degree of automation where there was none before. And really, it all boils down to this powerful concluding thought from Professor Kiskinov himself. He's framing this whole thing not as some side project, but as the central mission for legal thinkers today, to consciously and very carefully build this new legal world. So I'll leave you with this final question to chew on. This transition online, it's happening, whether we plan for it or not. The real challenge that Professor Kiskinov's work puts in front of us is this. Will we be the architects of this new legal reality, building it with purpose and by design, or are we just going to let it happen to us by accident?